Welcome to the Breakfast Leadership Show, where we interview global thought leaders on business, leadership, and life. Here's your host, keynote speaker, best-selling author, and chief burnout officer of the Breakfast Leadership Network, Michael Levitt.
Welcome back. I've got Hemant Varshney on the line. Hemant, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well, Michael. Thanks for having me on the show.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation. You do some amazing work in the e-commerce and marketing and branding and online and everything department. Why don't you share a little bit about you and we'll dive into the conversation.
Sure. So I'm the founder and CEO of DigiCom. We are a growth marketing agency. Our goal is to help D2C and e-commerce businesses grow. And we've been doing just that for quite a number of years.
Yeah, it's quite a few years. And as we were talking about a bit in the pre-show, you've seen a lot over the last decade and a half in this space. And the last 3 years, I'm guessing, may, for many of us, feels like a decade in itself because of all the changes and things that are thrown at us. And from there's this virus going around killing people to, oh, wait a minute, supply chain, all kinds of things. So what are some of the things that you and your clients have been encountering over these last few years when it comes to the e-commerce space? And the only thing that's constant is change, apparently. So what are some of the things you've been seeing?
So I would definitely agree with change being a constant, especially in digital advertising. There are things changing every day, and just have to be up to speed in all things digital. But wanted to just, I guess, start off by saying the pandemic for a lot of e-commerce brands really catapulted them. So in the pre-show we were talking about it, but basically. The country closed down, everybody went home, and then people just started to order online, buy things online. So it became much more important for brands to be online. And so from a lot of companies' points of views, what they ended up doing was ordering less inventory, right? Because they weren't sure what's going to happen. The world was coming to a standstill. And so now these brands start seeing these massive spikes in sales, but they don't have they don't have fulfillment, right? So inventory isn't there. There's postings everywhere, like 6 to 8 week shipping instead of 2 to 3 days. Shipping costs skyrocketed, so cost of goods went up, and e-commerce companies still came out ahead. There were a lot of acquisitions that happened. From 2020, 2021 into 2022. And then we kind of hit a big roadblock with iOS, right? So Apple made this massive change, and essentially that change is just loss in tracking. And so I guess if you're an e-commerce brand, and this is an arbitrary example, but say you're spending $100 a day. And you're getting 10 transactions a day. So your cost per transaction is $10. And Facebook is driving all of this. You're seeing all of this occur in the Facebook platform. What ends up happening is iOS hits and gets implemented. And now Facebook is no longer showing you have 10 conversions a day. It's showing you have 5 conversions a day. And so all marketers everywhere, they're scratching their heads oh man, my acquisition costs doubled, right? We went from $10 to $20. And in the grand scheme of things, what was actually happening is if you looked at your back-end orders, you were still shipping 10 products a day. You just weren't seeing it on the Facebook platform. So a lot of e-commerce companies went in, pulled back their budgets, and a kind of big workaround that we've worked on at DigiCom, we put together a bunch of case studies, is to understand what your total business efficiency is. So all channels combined, and how that impacts your overall efficiency, whether it's a CAC target or it's a ROAS target, what the revenue is, and then what the platforms are saying, and then adjust. So if your new normal on Facebook is $20, then work to the $20 target. And as long as your backend is working, you can keep scaling. a lot of e-com businesses just pull back budget, and then I call this the traffic conundrum. All of a sudden traffic dips to the site, and it's like, what do we do? How do we get around this? And I think for a lot of business owners out there that are still struggling with this, it's if you can calculate a divergence, if you're running pre-iOS between Facebook and your back end, and then look at what's going on right now and understand and adjust your CPA target, you can continue scaling your business. We've done it with a bunch of different clients, which has been great. And then I think right now, in 2023 and end of 2022, we're seeing a lot of venture funding kind of dry up. And so this is also like another alarming cause for a lot of startups because they're not running profitably. It's, we're going from a grow at all costs model to, hey, let's figure out how to become profitable. And what a lot of brands can focus on in terms of turning that profit is offline channels, super important, like paid social, ensuring you have blog content up. There are other ways to get traffic to your site, but also in testing out landing pages, testing out new creatives, running influencer. There are a lot of different unlocks. It's just testing through and finding what works for your brand.
I think that's what's really important. I love the work that your team does, especially around, we'll pick on the iOS thing for a minute. And all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, our cost per acquisition has doubled. And in reality, it didn't. It was just because the information you were getting had changed, where it was only reporting something, not as clean as it used to be. So it's always good to look at different pieces of evidence to figure out, okay, what's the reality of what's going on right now? And the tragedy in all of this, and you'd mentioned it, is a lot of people ended up pulling back their ad spend, off of Facebook or other mechanisms. And what happens is that means that there are not as many eyeballs seeing their product, which naturally is going to decrease sales. So they reacted to something that may have not actually been the reality of situation, and they ended up hurting themselves in the long run, which of course has a big ripple impact. And I feel horrible for those organizations. I remember when Apple did that. It was similar to a few years ago before the pandemic, when Facebook changed some things, and some businesses that were completely ran via Facebook, basically closed up shop because there's like, we're dead in the water. We have zero sales. Different example, but they literally had zero sales. They were selling like crazy, and all of a sudden done. And for me, that is one of those stark reminders that when you have a product or service and you're using a particular platform or a particular tool in order to generate your business and your revenue, and for some reason that tool goes away or a tool changes and you can't use it anymore, that's a singular point of failure. And as a business owner, or marketing company, or anything like that, you have to look at it and go, okay, if we couldn't use Facebook anymore starting tomorrow, what would we do? And I think that's a conversation that everybody needs to have, is like, or Google, for example, or iOS, or, okay, we're on TikTok all the time. Okay, TikTok gets banned for some reason. Okay, well, now all of a sudden that's gone. Okay, what do we do? And I think those are, unfortunately, some conversations that people have had to have because of things that you've mentioned.
Yeah. And, I think for like all the founders and entrepreneurs out there, it's very important to spend a portion of your budget, whether it's time or money, trying new ideas, new things, testing, setting up goals, having actionable next steps, having KPIs to understand if something is viable or not. It's important. And what that allows businesses to do, right? Say you're on Facebook and you spend 10% of your budget on Google and you find some unlocks and you're able to scale there. It changes the pie in how your revenue is created. And you become less dependent on one platform or one specific strategy. And in addition to that, you continue learning new things, right? Like entrepreneurs are out there being decision makers because that's what they're good at. They're, good at solving these puzzles or figuring things out or creating awesome products. So it's important to continue to learn about how you can push your business into new directions. And again, it could be 5% of your time or 5% of your budget. Typically, a lot of our clients, we spend about 15 to 20% of the budget testing. So when I say testing, what do I mean? That could mean testing a new platform. So running on Twitter, it could be running on TikTok, Quora. There are all these other platforms, or testing new creatives. Does video work better than static? Is it UGC or influencer? And then there are other, even smaller optimization tests like settings you could do in these platforms. And if you kind of take this approach, you could apply it at a larger scale across a business, right? What am I doing for business development? What am I doing to bring down my cost of goods? Instead of spending 100% of my budget for cost of goods with this one manufacturer, can I spend 10% in another manufacturer, do it for cheaper? There's a lot of different attributes you can test in a business. And if you're doing, consistent tests on a small scale, you can find new unlocks and then eventually scale that up and either save a lot of costs or increase revenue, and net, you can end up in a better place. Now, the downside of testing is not all your tests are going to work. And that's just part of it. It's part of learning.
And that's what's important is, we've heard the phrase, sometimes you win, sometimes you'll learn. Failure is, and I've seen this time and time again, I've seen all kinds of different leadership experts and gurus, say something similar to this. It's in the failures where we learn. When we're successful, like, yay, we're celebrating, popping the champagne, buying the new car, whatever. But when we fail, that is the opportunity. Okay, why? Why did we fail? What wasn't right on that didn't, was it the wrong timing, wrong market? Did we approach the messaging wrong? If for those that use, funnels, was the lead magnet wrong? Was the messaging wrong? You look at it and go, okay, why didn't this work? But approach it, and this is something that I do, and a lot of people I know do this as well, is when we have something that doesn't work, we approach it from curiosity, going, okay, why didn't that work? You have to kind of separate the emotions, which is very hard because we are emotional creatures, and to, have something and we put, 10 or 20% into it and it didn't work. Yeah. Our emotions are naturally going to go, or crying or, drowning our sorrows, whatever. Well, once you get past that pity party, then it's like, okay, let's look at this and go, okay, why didn't it work? Could have been something really simple. Could have been a little tweak. And next thing you know, so you say, okay, we're going to do it again, but we're going to tweak this. The next thing you know, you have a 7-figure launch and you go, wow, it's like, wow, how did that work? It's like, well, you looked at it from, a perspective. Okay, let's research, let's play. And I that's one of those things where a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to test. It's like, but that's when you find the new things. If people didn't do that, and we think about this, all the products and services that we use without thinking about it today would not exist. Yep. We wouldn't have Zoom. We wouldn't have had this camera. We wouldn't have, this headset, screens so we can touch glass and they respond and they do things. And all of this stuff were ideas. And let's try this. Let's test this out. We all know the first version of a smartphone with the glasses and all that stuff did not work well. We know that in those labs, it wasn't responding. It was freezing or the glass was cracking or who knows what. All of that, was complicated, but then they worked it out, they figured it out and they launched it. And now, unless you drop the thing, you're pretty safe to use it. But again, it's one of those things where I think we really need people to take the time and test and do things. And I know sometimes that might be challenging, especially, now with, what you mentioned a moment ago about the venture capital funding and the angel funding is kind of tightening up right now because of inflationary situations, recessions, it's a ripple effect. When people stop spending money on things, that's less money for people that receive the money to invest it in other things. So we kind of cause our own problems. If you look at it from a dynamic that way. So for those organizations that again have been relying on VC funds or angel funding or investing from others to grow, and all of a sudden that's not available, this is one of those things where it's a good way for you to go, okay, how do we grow the business without that funding? And that's when you got to get really creative.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, just like talking specifically to that, there should be specific business metrics that these e-com D2C platforms or subscription-based, in-store businesses should be looking at, right? So they should be looking at retention or reorder, or how do we improve conversion rate? So, if 100 people hit your site, one person transacts, you have a 1% conversion rate. How do we take that to 2? How do we take that to 3? And so when you start to see money get pulled back, it's about increasing efficiencies in the other levers, right? With the other levers you have. So conversion rate, improving click-through rate, diving into your data, or even having a full understanding of these are the KPIs we're currently running at. This is our buying cost. If buying costs go up 20% at the end of the year or 30% at the end of the year, how do we support that higher buying cost? Is it increasing price? Is it launching a new product? So all of these things are very important, but, specifically for us at DigiCom, we're breaking down the funnel metrics. So what does that mean? What is our media buying cost, whether it's CPM or CPC? What is our click-through rate? What is our conversion rate? And how do we improve it? If conversion rate is dropping for some reason, how do we design new landing pages? We do that in-house. What recommendations can we give to our clients about their flow to checkout, right? So you add to cart. Does add to cart work properly? Is there an upsell in there? Can you bump that AOV up? And if you're able to, does conversion rate stay constant? If yes, then you're going to make more money. Inversely, are people clicking on your ads? Your buying cost just went up, right? You went from $2 a click to $3 a click. How do you offset that? So, a nice way to kind of do that is test video, test static, long form versus short form. What headlines are working? What copy is working? And then when you pull that data, why do you think it's working? What does the consumer care about? And as you have that information, you can put a plan together of hey, this benefit messaging is working better than intrigue, messaging. And so how do we iterate on benefit messaging, and what benefits do people care about? Start talking about that. And over time, you can increase your conversion rate, your click-through rates to become more efficient and get to that road of profitability.
Yeah. And I think one problem that many entrepreneurs suffer from, and I'm been guilty of it as well, is we think what we want is what our customers want. And that's not typically the case. Our customers' pain points are different than ours. We want to say, okay, we have a product to solve this problem, but we need to make sure that we know, in fact, is that actually a problem that people are facing right now? And I think during the pandemic, we saw that, where there was a lot of new problems that came about, and content marketers and organizations like yours were in tune with, okay, what's the temperature out there? What do people need? And clients that I've worked with, I always told them, especially when they're trying to figure out, do we work remote or in person or hybrid? It's work whatever makes the most sense, but don't forget to ask your customers what they need. Because a lot of times people were we're going to do this and this. How does that impact the customer? If it has zero impact, okay. If it has negative impact, you're going to want to watch it. If it has positive impact, okay, then why didn't you do that before? But figure all of those things out. But I think one of the things that, and we talked about this again in the pre-show. I should have clicked record when we first jumped on. That would have been good. Sorry, folks. It was good. We enjoyed it. But we'd mentioned with all of this stuff going on and the ever-changing, how do we get our messaging right? What's our lead magnet look like? What's, that first page? Is it, a problem-solving issue? Is it, intrigue? Is it emotion? All these things. It's easy for people that work in the space and entrepreneurs as well to potentially start flirting with burnout, which is something we don't want to see. And it's not fun. I've had it. I wouldn't recommend it. It's, I give it 0 stars. If I could click 0, but there's usually 1 to 5 stars on things. Okay, I'll give it a half star. Okay, because that's the lowest I can probably give it. you don't want to burn out. But I'm guessing a lot of people in this space unfortunately have been, because there's that, we need something to convert because we need the revenue increase to flow so we can keep the doors open, or we can minimize the opportunity of having to lay people off. All these challenges that come up all the time, but right now that seems to be a common concern for a lot of people. So, what's some of the experiences you've seen with people and your clients and all of that, and what are some tips that you would suggest to help people kind of avoid burning out and doing this type of work?
Sure. So I think, talking about burnout, especially in digital, is very important because, as a digital marketer, and I've, been doing this for a few years now, you're always connected online. Our clients text us, they Slack us, we're in their meetings. So we're always constantly connected, right? And I guess a couple things that it's important to set boundaries for yourself. So with our team internally, certain steps we take, it's we're doing weekly check-ins. We're making sure people go on vacation. If we think of, if I know 4 team members went on vacation this year and the other 2 members on the team haven't gone on vacation, it's hey, take time off. Talk to your team. Everybody comes back better and happier. There are other things you could do, something I like to do, once a month. It's, we do state of the business. So we go over the business, everything, super transparent financials, all of that. Everybody knows exactly where we are, expenses, revenue, where there increases, if there decreases, what's going on. But after those, we go out to dinners, we go karting, we go bowling, we hang out, we talk to each other. And it's important to ensure that your team comes first, because if your team doesn't come first, you're not going to service your clients well. Your clients aren't going to be happy. Performance isn't going to be there. So it's a people first approach and an education based approach, and ensuring, people are doing good. And if they're not, well, why not? Just understanding, hey, is, maybe you don't need to know all the specifics, but hey, something's going on at home. Okay, well, you know what? Take a couple days, rest up. Sometimes there are big projects happening for a lot of different business owners, and sometimes it's hard to kind of fill that gap if, something is happening. But maybe it's hey, after this project, which will be done next week, take a couple days, or go for walks, talking to them about routine at home. It's very important to ensure that your team's happy.
It's important, and happy employees are productive employees, and productive employees have happy homes. I saw a quote actually yesterday from Jeff Bezos. We all know who he is. He launched this e-commerce company a few years ago. They sold books, and then they decided to sell everything else. But he had a comment, and I'm in alignment with this. He doesn't like the phrase work-life balance, because he said that's causing harm. He said it's like you're trying to divide yourself into 2 different people. So you're one person. He describes it as more of a circle, kind of a thing that kind of goes around. And it's if I'm happy at home, then when I go to work, I'm energized and productive, and I'm creative. I'm doing all these things. And if I'm able to do that in my space and I'm having a good day at work, then guess what? I get home, I'm happy, and I'm a better, spouse or partner, or better father or parent, or, or mother, or whatever the case may be. And it's it flows. And we're people sometimes, and I think we all want this and wish this, but it would be a boring world if we did. We sometimes want to compartmentalize things, and we want things, it's going to be this way. It's going to take me 17.5 minutes to do this and 10 minutes to do this. And we OCD the heck out of it. And it's that's not how humans are. We evolve. There's things that just kind of flow, and it's like going down a river. It's okay, I know down the river, I'm going to be able to collect all the things I need to do to build whatever I need to build. But I'm going to be in the river while I'm doing it. And it's going to flow, and it's going to go over to the left, it's going to go over to the right, and all of that. But what happens is, if you are in tune with that, and you understand yourself, and you can navigate through the flows of challenges, tech not working, client not responding, this doesn't work. They send you, we want this lead magnet. And you look at this, it's like, this wouldn't sell to their own mother. Okay, there's no way we can do it. How do we present that to the client in a nice, positive way? It's like, no one will ever buy that. And because you just know it won't sell. But all these challenges and things like that, it just makes life, it makes it challenging, but also makes it enjoyable and creative. And I think that's where people that burn out is they lose track of that, and they're just trying to, okay, I gotta get this done. And it's like, well, why do you want to get it done? Why is it important? What are you enjoying about this? Find the joy back into the creativity of work and the things that we do. And I find people, when they're in that type of zone, they don't tend to burn out. Yes, there's stress, but they navigate it a lot easier. And I love the fact that you recognize that with your team. It's like, okay, I'll take a couple days and literally get away, which in the work that you do, especially in this constantly connected world that we're in, that's easier said than done. It's tough to put down our iBinky. It really is. It's a great device, but it's like a couple days away. Just step away from it. Don't worry, the work will be there. Yeah, we'll do it, and you'll come back with it fresher. And oftentimes you see things clearly, and all of a sudden, if there was a challenge or a problem, it's like somebody took a yellow highlighter and just highlighted the heck out of it. It's like, oh, there it is. And but you didn't see it 2 days ago because you were just in a fog. It's like, oh, there it is.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say it any better myself. I think you absolutely nailed it. It's a couple minutes, a couple days, just time to yourself to just reflect or literally do nothing sometimes, moves mountains in terms of like what you're trying to do.
Yep. So in closing, where do you see things going over the next few years? I don't want to say a 5-year plan, because 5 years ago does not look anything like it does today. It's more like 5 minutes anymore. But what are some initiatives you see coming forward? I know video is still seems to be pretty good, but where do you see things going in the next few years?
Sure. I see, a lot more video-based content going live every day all across. Doesn't mean statics don't work. And for your respective brand, you have to test, but tapping into influencer, tapping into sponsored content, it's very, very important. And something that, we want to do at DigiCom, and we've kind of spec'd things out this week, is to just build our own proprietary technology where brands don't get charged an arm and a leg to just go find content creators very easily and work directly with them. So, that's where I see kind of the market moving at, right now. And for us, we are marketers. So we want to build a tool for marketers, that's cost effective. There's high value in it. And so that's where we're investing our time right now, outside of the day-to-day of, managing ad spend programs and looking at creatives and conversion rate. Yep.
That's great. It's exciting times for sure. So love this conversation. Where can people find out more about you, DigiCom, and everything else you're working on?
Sure. Please come check out digicom.io. We are a no BS growth marketing agency. We really try to go above and beyond for our partners, whether it's like auditing what's happened in the past and coming back to you with a plan, or figuring out creative ways to, solve certain challenges you might be running into for the business, when that's specifically to marketing. So, come check us out.
I'll definitely have all that in the show notes. So again, thank you so much for your time today. Love the work you're doing. So continued success, because it's making all of us look a whole lot better. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Breakfast Leadership Show, part of the Breakfast Leadership Network. Visit breakfastleadership.com for tips on empowering your business and your life.